Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. Hope everybody has had a great weekend, had some time to mentally relax, take a break from the markets, but we are back and the ground is running right here with a market that is actually continuing to push up near these all-time high levels, even in face of a government possible shutdown. We'll be talking about what this could mean for further implications in terms of volatility, some big stocks that are right now kind of in this accumulation consolidation phase that could be gearing for the next leg up, and some stocks that are receiving a lot of momentum. We'll be talking about it all, talking about Palantir, Robinhood making some big moves, BMNR, that's a very exciting one we'll be talking about, and ASTS, some big stocks that we've been talking about recently on the channel. So if you are a new or returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and let's pop it up on the screen. We're so close to that next leg of like 27,000 subscribers. Let's see if we can hit it. Thank you guys so much. Now, Palantir is just hanging out here at 178. Not a ton of big data, technical type of trading to look at. It's basically in this consolidation zone. One thing that I do like about Palantir here is that it's holding steady with a little bit of volatility in the market. And it's near these all-time high levels. And Palantir likes to do this. It likes to basically build a strong support level and just hang out here until we get some big catalyst and they continue to execute with these huge headlines and contracts. You know, what's that going to be? That next catalyst that's going to push it up to $200. Since it's holding here, not doing a ton, this breakout level, if we do get it in terms of the macroeconomic environment, if things still continue to look well towards the end of the year, which typically they do historically, we see a lot of momentum in Q4. I think $200 is still on the table for Palantir. I'm still going to hold that as my own personal prediction. In the overnight hours, not making a ton of moves. Now, before we talk about some of the other stocks today, let's talk about the futures right now. They're basically kind of holding steady. We see the broader market, the S&P 500 index, holding here at 6661. So doing a pretty good job. We've seen kind of those all-time highs at that 6700, and it's just trading in a range here between 66 and 6700. I'm not mad about that at all, especially with the seasonality of September that was kind of against us, but the market's been very, very resilient. So the next big question that a lot of people are starting to look at, you know, what's the threat of this whole federal government shutdown looming here with an October 1st funding deadline approaching? If you want my honest opinion, I don't really care. And that is because historically, I'm looking at kind of historically what has happened when we had a government shutdown. Number one, if you kind of look at the last and previous government shutdowns that we've had over the years, nobody really seems to remember them. You know, we don't really talk about them. So they're not really that memorable. They're not these huge events. And, you know, right here, and CNBC even acknowledges this, that shutdowns really aren't usually market movers. So they say this time could be different. Oh, of course, this time could be different. You know, any time could be different. But historically, I'm just not going to put a lot of emotional thought into it. It's not going to push a lot of anxiety into me personally with trading and stuff like that. Of course, we see a big shift, you know, then I can exit some positions that are over leveraged and stuff like that. But nonetheless, you know, talking about the slower labor market here, the risk of stagflation, you know, talking about all these elevated stock valuations and kind of the big fears that keep getting pushed. You know, when is the crash coming? When is the crash coming? You know, we're pricing in about those 2 rate cuts for the remainder of the year, just kind of sitting on the sidelines. It's not what I personally want to do with the resiliency that we've seen in the market, with a lot of conviction that I personally have in a lot of these big stocks, and with a lot of liquidity that could be coming into not just, you know, the traditional markets, but also into the cryptocurrency markets. Specifically, we'll be talking about BMNR and Ethereum. But before we get there, talking about this, Hood. Wow, Robinhood has been making some big moves up here at $135.55, pushing up about 12% on the day. Now, there haven't been any huge catalyst or huge headlines that have had Hood push to new all-time highs. It just kind of launched up. One of the big key things is that Hood is now in the S&P 500. So passively, you're going to start seeing big money that will passively be buying Robinhood. And people that don't even know what Robinhood is or don't want to even individually buying it are now buying it within their retirement funds into the large index funds. So Hood is going to get a lot of passive buying pressure. You know, in terms of actual things that we've seen, I saw on X here, prediction markets, look at this cumulative event contract volume up over here, $4 billion for event contracts, talking about here quietly becoming one of the fastest growing volume engines on the platform. And Robinhood, in terms of the whole kind of gambling and I'm going to call it gambling, but prediction markets in terms of sports betting and whatever you want to bet in, the more of the gambling type of market. A lot of people like to do that, and we can see that because the proof is in the pudding. The numbers don't lie, and Robinhood is continuing to execute by offering all of these different products, and they're just continuing to develop. And I think it's going to be this next generational type of platform. I mean, I love Robinhood. Any type of trader that you see on X sharing screenshots, half the time, 90% of the time, is on Robinhood. So just seeing it in terms of a social aspect, that's why I'm very bullish on that. Let's talk about here BMNR. Now, BMNR, of course, we know with Tom Lee, I do have a personal position in this, so with full disclosure, take that with any type of a bias. BMNR right here is at 53.22, popped up here to about the $60 level after we saw this local kind of bottom here at this 39.40 area, pops up here, pulls back a little bit with Ethereum. That did pull back. Ethereum came down to like $3,800 and kind of sat here at this 49, and we see a little bit of, you see a reversal basically right here at this $49.48 level. Now BMNR sits here at this $53 zone, and that is because we do have a lot of optimism coming back into the crypto markets. BMNR does basically have a lot of volatility based off of Ethereum's price action, and we are seeing some confidence coming back into Ethereum right here at 4,200. Now the big thing is there's a lot of optimism among the whole crypto markets in general. You have here just announcements. You can see SEC chair here announcing that crypto is his number one priority to really develop some clear guidelines and regulation, and how is crypto going to be basically integrated into our traditional financial markets. So the optimism and what we've seen historically with the whole Q4 in terms of crypto stable coins that are really, really starting to increase in their market capitalization, and a lot of liquidity that could be coming in with Tom Lee that's acquiring Ethereum like no other. His goal right here, as a lot of you guys know if you're into BMNR, is taking advantage of this whole super cycle and this investing narrative between AI and crypto. And what he talks about here, the power in numbers, or the alchemy of 5% of Ethereum. His goal is to have within BMNR, within this Ethereum treasury, 5% of the supply of Ethereum right here. This, he owns 2.65 million, now up from 2.4 million last week. So native asset value still continuing to look well in BMNR. In the after hours, this stock can move more in the after hours because it does move more with crypto. In terms of where it's trading at in this level, if we see an accumulation here, any push back up here, a retrade or retesting back up here to the 60s, if this goes above 60s, that's where BMNR, I think, is going to have a melt-up type rally if the whole Ethereum type of melt-up and liquidity push, if that actually happens. Now, of course, that's a big question. If that actually happens in Q4, that's the whole risk behind BMNR. It's a very volatile asset. It can easily move 10 to 15% up in a day. So if you can't handle those moves, if you can't handle the swings, if that's going to cause way too much anxiety, maybe it's not the stock for you. But other than that, of course, do your own full research on that because it is a very volatile stock. Other stocks we'll be talking about here, ASTS. I do want to mention that because it's at a very interesting point right here. ASTS, we've been talking about. I like ASTS because of the conviction that I have behind it in terms of developing the whole broadband satellite spectrum type of availability, and the fact that it works with these mobile network operators not trying to kind of create their own. In terms of this direct to consumer satellite type of service offering, with BMNR, or with, ASTS, wrong thing. I thought I stopped my recording for a second, so that's why I had a little jump there, but still going. But with ASTS right here, developing broadband spectrum, one big thing is we seen insider buy today in terms of Scott right here. He just boosted his stake up to 43,000 shares. You can see here he was given or vested about 72,000 shares, surrendered 28,000, invested 43. So in terms of this acquisition and what he vested into that, shows you that if you have the CEO right here, the president, loading up into ASTS, especially at these prices, considering that, he probably gets a lot of stock-based compensation, that is very bullish, and especially the presence for me. Those are big indicators that, hey, could there be something coming up today? We saw that he was supposed to speak today. However, they got pushed by a big Trump announcement or something like that. So I'm very curious to see what he had to say. If anybody knows or anybody sees any type of link or when he's actually going to speak again on Bloomberg, please let me know down in the comments. And you see here another announcement. Verizon is in talks to buy EchoStar Spectrum. Talks about bolstering our service. talking about here, so you can see the whole kind of idea between this whole direct to satellite type of connection for devices and working with the mobile networks rather than trying to create their own network and things like that. Shows you that ASTS in terms of their total addressable possible market, if they execute this well in terms of their launches. Of course, there's a lot of speculation behind this, but if this executes well, then hey, there could be some decent rewards for any type of investor that possibly gets in there. And hey, if they for some reason fail, then that's where you're going to see ASTS come back down. But nonetheless, in terms of the price action, trading action right here, there is a lot of support right here at this $47, $48 zone. So I do have a current position right here, not huge. Recently took advantage of this last swing up here. Kind of timed the top actually decently well, and now just re-entering into a position here. Of course, there's always an area for a next leg down because ASTS, it does seem to have a lot of downward pressure. There's a lot of shorts behind the stock, so of course, be careful with all your own trades that you take. Other than that, that's all that I have for you guys. Peace out, take care, and I hope you guys have a great day.